Hello, Star Family. I'm Michael at oneskyastrology. It's November. The sun is traveling through Libra, and these are stars that are anciently associated with an amazing array of things. It's the only non-living symbol in the modern zodiac, the scales of Libra. You can sense in that imagery qualities of fairness and balance and justice. It was karmic justice to the Egyptians. The scales were representative of the scales of truth in the afterlife, where the heart would be weighed against the feather of Ma'at, high truth. Or Libra is about relationship issues and matters. Or one of my favorite takes on the stars of Libra is as an extension of Scorpio, that instead of two scales, you have the two claws of the scorpion. That's the classic understanding from the Arabic skywatching traditions that kept astrology alive through the European Dark Ages and Holy Inquisition. So Libra resonates with all of the above, for sure, and much more. And if you got your telescope out and pointed it at Libra on November 13th, 2023, you'd need a solar filter because the sun is here. But you could expect to see the sun and moon in the same degree with Mars, about 1.5 degrees away. Mercury is in the Scorpio, and Venus is in early Virgo. So the inner planets are accounted for. The south node is here in the proximity of fixed star Spica. Pluto is occupying that no man's land between Sagittarius and Capricorn, in the very cuspy territory. Saturn is now moving direct in Aquarius. And Pisces is home to Neptune, Chiron, and an Eris North Node conjunction. Finishing it up, Aries plays host to Jupiter and Uranus, a very auspicious combination. So let's check out the charts. All right, it's a new moon on the 13th of November, 2023. And the first thing that I'd like to say is that the intention of the new moon, the sort of energy of the new moon, what's happening at a new moon is very low energy. It's really not an action-oriented or dynamic time. It's more a time for strategizing or planning, intending, kind of envisioning where you want to direct the future flow. If we're living in and with the pulse of this cycle, the new moon is the sort of low, slow, receptive part of the pulse. Let's look at Libra. This is where it's happening. And I just want to talk about the zodiacal constellation for a bit. This region of the sky has always been understood as dual, split. Whether that reflects the I-thou axis of relationships, the twin claws of the scorpion, the two balances of a scale, or like of any choice itself, Libra reflects a binary quality, a two-ness, a penchant for duality. And this duality tends to involve other people. Libra is resonant with Venus. Libra is representing a shift from Virgo's it's actually Aries through Virgo. We're going through a subjective process. And in Libra, we break that. And there's an emphasis on objectivity. Libra actually introduces a need for objectivity. And so the idea of understanding points of view that are not ours dominates Libra's many processes. Libra tends to support the intelligent, elevated, educated, and artistic, sophisticated, refined, tactful approaches to situations. Libran energy supports, it engenders relationships and diversity within that. So what I mean is that it's not just sexual or romantic relationships. Those are Venusian hallmarks, but these relationships can be any I-thou expression. The action of Libra is to empower our awareness of other points of view through engendering and supporting that I-thou dynamic. So, to that, it seems Libra wants us to appreciate more than just ourselves. One way to think of Libra in the context of the last few lunar cycles is that energies that raise the self, energies that exalt the self, and situations in which we're learning about ourself through focus on that self are Leos. So energies that raise the self, Leo. Energies that lower the self or put us in a position of service or humility or sort of lower than, that's encouraged by Virgo. That's what Virgo does. And energies that balance that self with other selves, right? So in Leo, it's all about us. Other selves don't even really matter as much here. And here, it's all about other selves. In Virgo, we can forget ourselves all too easily. So Libra, that's the essential balance that we've been moving towards, and that's a sort of context, a context for the last couple lunar cycles. What Libra does is it initiates all kinds of relationships just to kind of see who it'll vibe with, who it likes, who it loves, who it gets along with, what to avoid, what to be wary of. Libra represents the processes by which we learn these things. And then in Scorpio, we get into the selection and commitment of partnership. So in a way, it's not only that Libra has been interpreted as early Scorpio, but we can understand Scorpio as to be continuing and completing those processes that begin in Libra. There's a really incredible relationship between the two that isn't recognized often enough. So Libra teaches us to listen, to contemplate what others really need, right? Not what we think they'll need, not what we would want if we were in their shoes. But these stars genuinely encourage us to stretch, to encompass others, to genuinely encompass others. And this brings up an important point. People think Libra is about balance and harmony and love and sex and marriage. Well, sex and marriage is an 8th house Scorpio Fucus thing. And Libra is about all kinds of one-on-one relationships. So love is okay, but so are open enemies, competitors, opponents, rivals. Or it could be like teacher-student, attorney-client. It could be artist-subject. It could be anything. But when it comes to balance and harmony, Librans are famous for extremes, actually. And stay with me here, especially if you're a Libra sun. I just want to say that Libra is known to manifest polarities, and just like Gemini, a flexibility of viewpoint. Also like Gemini, a straight up split at times. So in Libra, we are called to learn about balance. We're called to learn about balance, but it doesn't mean we always exhibit balance. In Vedic star wisdom, this area of the sky is known as Vishaka Nakshatra. And Nakshatra is a lunar mansion, a sort of stellar group, and Vishaka meant the fork-shaped, split. All of this so far is just about Libra. That's all we've been talking about. just the backdrop. We have Mars here. Mighty Mars conjoined the new moon. And this is definitely going to increase bravery, adventurousness, enthusiasm, impulsiveness. This month, it's just going to imbue consciousness represented by sun and moon with these qualities. It really empowers us towards the desires we feel most passionately about. And they don't need to be sexual desires, but the combination of Mars and Venus does lend itself to animal magnetism, sexual vitality, erotic appeal, and those sorts of things. In Libra, the combination of the luminaries and Mars acts to increase desire for relationships or desire for relationship. It also increases risk-taking. That's a Mars quality. It increases those impulsive behaviors relative to all relationship issues. All right, that's the territory of Libra and the behavior of Mars. So they can work together here, and Libra softens Mars' insensitive, forceful, competitive qualities, but not his carnal impulses to pleasure. Libra also naturally supports those. But Mars emboldens Venus and Libra's gentle, passive qualities, those compassionate, sensitive qualities. Mars can give them strength and balanced perspective and action to Libra's ideals. So Mars reminds Libra that relationships with others are, at the end of the day, mirrors in which we engage in the art of self-exploration, self-evolution. But Mars, in combination with the luminaries, is distinctly libidinous, so those energies may be hard to avoid this month, and harder to avoid when we take into consideration a special feature of the chart, which is the Mars nodes. And when we bring this chart in here, we're looking at the same new moon, November 13th, 2023, now with Mars's nodes added. So, North node of Mars shares Aries with Jupiter and Uranus, and the South node of Mars shares Vishaka with Mars and the new moon. So all planets have nodes, and the nodes show where a planet crosses the ecliptic into magnetic northern hemisphere. That's the north node. And where they move into magnetic southern hemisphere, that's the south node. So nodes, just like lunar nodes, are never going to be bodies. There'll always be just points in space. But like lunar nodes, they symbolize and reflect the prior conditioning and patterns within that archetype. And so that'd be Mars archetype. The conditioning and patterns of Mars and the intended future conditioning of that archetype. That's the north node. So the prior conditioning around Mars, south node, same as the lunar nodes. They work just the same. And the future conditioning, the intended conditioning, north node. So here we are with Mars nodes in the mix. We have Mars within between 7 degrees Libra and 9 degrees Libra. We have this new moon, completely Martian. And not only that, but when a planet conjoins its south node, we know a lot about that. So this month could easily raise themes for many of us around past sexual karma, intimate connections, and past decisions around issues surrounding those. And this month could give us an opportunity to confront any patterns in our psyche. And south node of Mars represents prior conditioning around aggressiveness, assertiveness, adventurousness, but sex and violence are the real big ones. Like those words act like big bright lights in our brain, right? They really light us up, electrically speaking. Sex and violence. And they can both have a moth to a flame quality of attraction for us as humans. So November's lunar cycle is giving us, it's just handing us the opportunity to do different things right? Softer things, gentler things, if Libra has anything to say about it, with our Martian impulses. And these are especially patterns within that Martian area of our lives, repeating patterns. These may emerge this month. This brings the south node of Mars with new moon, brings to the new moon chemistry these prior existing patterns within the Martian archetype in our psyches. So if you have work to do in this area, you are likely to find yourself this month in patterns around maybe relationships and aggression, which are familiar to you, or likewise around relationships and sex. Relationship goals could be highlighted, how we meet our relationship needs, how we Mars in Libra might express for many as a chance to reinvigorate relationships with a new flame, right? New pursuits, new goals, a fresh approach. Perhaps an adventurous approach could open up this month for many. We are very likely to be able to be making new decisions, new patterns, new choices, where old patterns have reared their head. And that's what's important about this month, is the auspicious energy around north node of Mars in Aries, all very accessible from this point of view, the point of view of a new moon with Mars, to tap into making newer, better choices if the same old situations roll around. I'll say more about that as the video goes on. It's going to be a theme of this month, but I don't want to spend too long on all that now. We do have another very close conditioning factor to this month's new moon, and it's Uranus making a very close 23-minute opposition. And Uranus on the Aries-Taurus cusp is, it can be volatile. It can be very volatile in the later degrees of Aries. And Uranus oppositions have a known effect. They create a need for independence. And that often arises in contrast to the emotional needs of the bodies across the sky from it, the bodies opposed. So Uranus oppositions create anxiety. They create feelings of being trapped. They create feelings of wanting to escape. And Uranus with North Node in late Aries, opposed as closely as it is to the new moon, is going to play off of the Mars and South Node Mars in a strange way, right? Strange because it's Uranus, and strange because the chemistry of Uranus and Mars is somewhat unique. Is together they create a very daring, adventurous, innovative energy, and this lends itself to breakthrough. It really shines. It's very lucky, very sporty, very adventurous energy. It's known for extremism, going too far, especially when Mars is strong and the aspect is harsh. So it's very independent. This is primarily a very independent influence, Uranus and Mars. If it comes to bear on any relationships, it might express as a need for more personal freedom. This could be a big theme this month, a need for more personal freedom. And this can, of course, happen within a relationship. This is Libra's territory. We're looking for more personal freedom. Then, it's not so much that this is a deal breaker for relationships. A healthy relationship can encompass this. It can evolve along those lines. But this is an anti-codependency signature, and will empower anyone who's working with issues around independence vis-a-vis codependency to feel bolstered towards their personal freedom. And this can also happen within a relationship for one or both partners. And when we look at Uranus-Mars here, this opposition, we can see that Neptune makes a very supportive Pisces-based sextile trine. And the sextile and trine are supportive relationships. Neptune's very strong and empowered in Pisces. Neptune, it has a lot to say about self-deception, also about disillusionment. All right, so the whole process there is Neptune's. And in trine sextile to this opposition, I think it could be an amazing time to examine all kinds of issues around how we relate to others, especially around boundaries and needs. All right? Remember, healthy balance. That's what Libra really wants. Another critical influence that I see, really worth mentioning, is the very close relationships that we see when we examine Venus, making sextile to Mercury, and Venus is ruling this new moon. So we see Venus making sextile to Mercury and semi-square to the Sun and Moon. And this looks, oh boy, it's going to look better when I get done drawing it than it did when I start. But it looks like this sort of formation from Virgo to Mercury and Scorpio. And I want to say this, because of the closeness of the relationships and because of their relativity to the new moon, this could be a self-critical influence, and the potential for self-sabotaging thought is high. The Venus in Virgo is a little critical, and Scorpio Mercury can really obsess and fixate and focus. And this moon is going to see us into and through Scorpio season. So we're entering into that. We can be aware of those natural tendencies and more consciously choose to engage Mercury in Scorpio as a chance to understand ourselves, right, at depth, appreciate ourselves, Venus, for who we really are. And Venus in Virgo as a chance to uproot what we may label as character defects, to transform. There's a trine to Pluto here that empowers Venus to transform our self-critique by changing our habits and patterns themselves, or changing our relationship to ourselves around them. That could even be more important. That last part could even be more important than changing the patterns and habits themselves. But when we get Scorpio involved, I just want to remind everybody, especially because the Sun will move through Scorpio. We're going into Scorpio season. The next new moon will happen in Ophiuchus. So Scorpio isn't about living up to a big dreamy ideal of ourselves. It's about living down to who we really are. It's in the real human beauty and folly and ecstasy and pain of it all that Scorpio really finds itself at home, rolling in the mud with that. As we move through, Scorpio season is going to be better than trying to keep ourselves clean. And I think it'll be good to keep that in mind, because Venus and Mercury will move together this month. They keep their sextile through the entire cycle. One of the last things I see around this new moon, I know we've gone, almost overtime just talking as much as we have, but the North Node and Eris, Mays are conjoined here in late Pisces, and they're square to Pluto, which means that Pluto square the nodes. So we have the continuation in Pluto T-square the nodes with Eris North Node conjunction. And this is going to throw wild cards onto the table, my friends. This is going to distort our sense of darkness in ourselves, in others. It could engender devious strategies, and it does make contact with Pluto, so there could be situations that emphasize control, manipulation, secrecy, diabolical strategies. It's an Eris quality too, diabolical strategies. On the bright side of Eris North Node, this conjunction, the medicine here is that we can reinvent where we're going. We can just turn the bus around like when we want to. Eris is that wild card. She's very associated with choice and personal freedom. So we can reinvent where we're going, or we can expand our perspective. That's a Pisces function. We can expand our perspective around that. We can tackle our own shadow, right? Eris is a liberator through shadow work archetype. Liberator through shadow work. And if we can bring self-awareness to bear on our month, we may see opportunities to shed old emotional patterns, right? Nodes are old emotional patterns. So even though this is the north node, new emotional patterns, we have an Eris south node opposition. And Eris is caught up with the nodes. So when we talk about repatterning, when we talk about evolving patterns of emotionality around darkness, we can repattern and recognize those parts of us that have not gotten recognition, right? In spite of their muffled requests, in spite of their repeated demands, the parts of ourselves that we refuse to recognize, we can repattern and reestablish relationship with those parts of ourselves. It's so empowered to do that this cycle, and as long as Eris stays with North Node. So those are the chart features. I think of Sun and Moon and Mars on the scales. Sun and Moon and the scales of Libra, and it brings to mind the sixth tarot card in Rider-Waite-Smith that was the Lovers. But it isn't about, I mean, only on the surface is it about lovers. It's about choice. When you study the sixth major arcana, you can really see a theme across interpretations of choice, making a choice. The Lovers is often depicted with three figures, not in some eroticized menage a trois kind of way, but in a way indicative that we can't have both. We have to choose. And with all due respect to polyamorous lifestyles, and I mean that, it's just that's the archetype that the card presents. Paul Christian, in his History and Practice of Magic, traces that card back to an older Egyptian image, the two roads, right? Vishaka, the fork-shaped. That's what's going on this month in a big way. And when we're at a crossroads, the path we choose will open many future paths up to us, and it'll close other future paths off. When the road we seem to be on becomes two roads, and we stand at the threshold of a choice, especially one related to prior existing patterns of action, right? Mars South Node. In the language of astrology, action is very favored. We have all these auspicious forces, and the North Node of Mars in action-oriented Aries. Maybe even action will be forced if we resist. We have all of these strong players, and you'll see for the full moon the strength of Saturn and Pluto when they come to bear on how this month plays out. Even new forms of action are asked for here, right? If we find ourselves in the same old patterns around assertiveness and aggression, generally or sexually, both Mars territory, or if we find the world in the same old patterns around war, that's that in mundane astrology, Mars is war. They may feel really tired or worn out. Those choices that we may feel a deep need for new choices to be made, different routes to be taken. So looking at this month, I would advise at least one of two things. Trying for both is going to get us far, I believe, this month. Take the high road if you have a choice. That's the first thing you can do. And the second thing that we can do is to take a different road from our habitual, old, well-traveled paths, especially in areas that reflect that Martian archetype of pursuit, conquering, assertiveness, goal, accomplishing. Healthy Mars is a very accomplishing energy. So we don't have to sexualize it or make it violent. This is about how we go after our goals. We're going to have a chance to really drill down and examine this. All right. So with that, let's move on to the waxing quarter. Yeah. Bam. Waxing quarter, 20th November 2023. And the intention of the waxing quarter phase is sort of as an emergence, sort of as an appearance, right? The new moon is, let's say the new moon is what wants to happen, and then the full moon is the peak energy of the cycle, the high point, the expression, the fruition. So the first quarter phase actually gives clues as to what will emerge, what will it look like, how will it be this month, what's the general flavor. And the moon is with Saturn, and just right away that says heavy, obstacles. It's not a great combo for good feelings, so just be aware of that. Around the 20th of November, the moon moves quickly, so these lunar conjunctions aren't ever really anything to spend a lot of time worrying about or planning for. But another thing I see that's really interesting is Chiron in Pisces. He's making only a few aspects, but they're very close. He's making an 18-minute semi-square to Saturn, and he's making a 2-degree 36-minute opposition to Venus, as well as a very close 58-minute trine to Mercury right on the Ophiuchus cusp. And what that says to me is that this could really emphasize, the Saturn moon heaviness could really emphasize early difficulties in our lives, how they affect our ability to be free now. That's really what this. It's really what this chart says to me. In essence, it says this lunar cycle is going to give us a chance to confront our early difficulties, our early limitations. It's going to give us a chance to see how they affect our ability to be free, how we may project our unresolved issues onto the world. And a moon in Aquarius and a moon with Saturn both have the quality of being able to sort of like detach almost, or it's not about detachment, it's just that they can see things without getting caught up in them. So a moon in Aquarius is very advantaged to take a look at our own early lives, because when the moon is here, there's a chance to touch subject matter psychologically and not get caught up in it, not get drawn into it, not get compelled by it, but to stay healthily detached. Yeah, just an Aquarian quality. Elsewhere, Mars is still with the Sun, making strong aspects, still opposed to Uranus, still in Libra. So center stage, Sun and Mars in Libra remain active agents. Yeah, Sun and Mars in Libra remain active agents in all the ways we talked about in the new moon video. So let's head to the full moon. Let's check it out. I think the quarter moon charts are much less significant. I think they're indicative. I think they're helpful. I always look at them. But the full moon and the new moon are really where the meat of the cycle is. This is really where it happens. And in the full moon here on November 27th, 2023, we find, as I mentioned, the sort of high point of the pulse. If there's a pulse, and we think about it as a sine wave, the full moon is just the highest energy, the fruitional, most ripe and fruitional energy of the cycle. And it tends to be where things happen. It tends to be that the new moon talks about what wants to happen, like a seed. The seed, it wants to be a tree. And, we don't even know what kind of tree sometimes when we look at a seed. That's the new moon. First quarter moon is like just when it starts to sprout and you get the idea, it might be that kind of tree. And by the full moon, we have the tree is fruited and you're dealing with, the container of the next seed, isn't it? The new moon, and the cycle just continues and continues in this pulse kind of way. So here we are at the full moon, and the moon is in Taurus, and the sun is in Scorpio with Mars. And Scorpio is really favored here. Mars is highly resonant with Scorpio. It's strengthening the sun. It's strengthened by sun. And it's good to remember that with the Taurus moon, reflecting a Scorpio sun, because this is very strong for self-reliance, right? Autonomy and independence, like these words we've been using to describe the energies of this cycle. But bringing Scorpion, this axis, the Scorpio, Ophiuchus, Taurus axis, it narrows the focus to just the self. And this is in contrast with the original intention of the new moon, that Libran influence. In other words, it creates a strong need for independence, but because that wants to happen, what wants to happen when we marry Taurus and Scorpio is we want to look within and see ourselves as empowered, right? The very stuff. Like, we don't want to see ourselves as symbolic of transformation, or see ourselves as needing an outside agent to be transformed. But this is we want to look within and see ourselves as the stuff itself. To relate to our own inner selves, our very inner selves, whether that's a soul or a mind stream or just, nothing Lebowski to you, it doesn't matter. There is a self in there that we experience when we turn our attention inward. And this is a clarion call to relate to it as an agent and a medium of transformation, to see the psyche as the alchemical crucible itself. That's what really wants to happen. When we combine Taurus's need for security with Scorpio's commitment and deep penetration to the real issue, what we get is not needing any external forms of security. We get an inner alchemy where we want to be completely contained. That's the urge, individually, and know that we have all the mystery and mojo we need when we look within to be transformed, to catalyze our own transformation. I mean, Pluto's out there, but he reflects an inner quality of the psyche. This is all the nature of your own mind. That's what's happening here. The outer world reflects the inner world. So, without waxing philosophical, I just want to say that this clarion call, right, to find our own inner resources and develop them in ways that decrease our codependency and increase our healthy independence, right, enabling healthy interdependence, right. And in doing this, for single or dating people, it doesn't matter. We're going to attract other self-realized people. Like, as we up our autonomy, we're going to naturally attract other people with a strong sense of autonomy, and so on. And in a committed relationship, it works the same. It's the same principle, same logic, just that the relationship grows stronger as the individuals grow more independent. So they aren't looking for a partner to be their other half in some sort of codependent way, but they're showing up as 100% each, right? At which point the relationship benefits from synergy, where the output is more than the input, where the outcome is more than the sum of its parts. Synergy. That's the relationship magic. So we can't look down on the Taurus-Scorpio axis. It gives us an angle of approach to this, to the mojo, to the magic. So this could be an amazing cycle, whether you're doing self-work, whether you're in a relationship doing work, whether some other situation applies to you, whether it could be very good, very strong if we choose to understand and lean in. A couple other things are happening. Goodness. We do have Neptune on a fixed star, Merkab. That's Alpha Pegasus. And she's square Mercury. And Mercury is on Ras Al Hag, Alpha Ophiuchus. And then this same Mercury here, pretty activated by stars, is trine to Eris. And Eris isn't on a big, powerful star. She's with the North Node. So, what I see in this is great depth of consideration. I see increased self-awareness, realization, recognition, chance to heal, not just psychologically, but spiritually. And I see a chance to apply new unexpected methods or approaches, which really fits. That's an Eris Mercury quality. And that really fits with what the lunar cycle seems to me to be talking about. I see opportunities to heal spiritually at the level of connection to spirit. That's what I mean. We're healing in a fucus. Mercury, psychological healing, and Neptune and Eris take this deep. And the North Node gives us steam, gives us a sort of fixation on it. What we want to focus on, that healing, what we want to accomplish, that goal. We can get it. We can get it. And that's the wave. That's the wave we want to harness. It's the wind we want to put in our sails. So, seems very good to me. But we're dealing with two T-squares this full moon. So I want to outline them because they affect Sun and Moon, T-squared by Saturn, and they affect the nodes. That's Eris and Venus are opposing with the nodes, and they are T-squared by Pluto. So the two actors T-squaring are Pluto and Saturn. And the two parties are involving the moon. One, the moon-sun axis, the other, the lunar nodal axis. So this is really having the potential to affect our feelings. That's one thing we can say. There is an emphasis on prior emotional patterns around relationships. That's Venus with the South Node. And formation of new emotional patterns around needing to liberate. That's Eris. Eris is a liberation through shadow work and recognizing the unrecognized. That's her archetype. So Pluto in late Sag is challenging us to uncover the truth, and of our own patterns here in these territories. What do we need, right, spiritually, to be true to ourselves, especially when it comes to our relationships with others? The second T-square, this Saturn T-square of Sun and Moon, well, let's sort of take that apart for a moment. Here's the Moon opposing Sun and Mars and Saturn from Aquarius T-squares. And relative to the Taurus-Scorpio axis, Aquarius will empower those stripping away qualities of Scorp, right, where the Sun sits. And Saturn will challenge the Sun and Moon to incorporate new emerging and new evolving structures. That's Aquarius, Saturn in Aquarius. So we may find in some way that our allegiances are challenged, tested, pushed on, either outwardly. Our attitudes can change towards things or people we've been loyal to, ourselves included. So take this opportunity to get up and ride the wave, become more loyal to yourself. That's what this lunar cycle is about in so many ways. Saturn may challenge us to do that. In other words, there could be a situation that demands correction or balance, and in correcting or balancing it, we may be presented with opportunities to see ourselves in a new light. Remember, even if it's a harsh experience or you feel seen in a hard light, that's a Scorp thing. I mean, if you feel vulnerable and exposed, it's Scorpio season. So just take the lesson from it and process the rest. It's not personal. And it's not you. It's a Scorpio season. So there's much here about guidance and knowings that I didn't mention. We can see that in the Pisces Mercury contact. We could be really open to guidance and knowings this month. The challenge from T-squares could be to individual goals, and it could be to relationships too. This is a Libra cycle, but for many people, regarding choice is still a Mars choice. Like with if there is a key issue that comes to the fore, The Mars is still with the Sun. We still see opposite the Moon. And with Saturn and Pluto both T-squaring these major situations, can feel like the situation is set in a lot of these cases. The choice could feel forced. It's a Libra moon, but it's Scorpio season now, so lessons about the limits of our control and where our power lies and where it ends and where we feel powerless, well, these could be par for the course. So the medicine in them is that they help us to understand our capabilities and our limitations, which is empowering. But Scorpio and its ruler Pluto are always more rough, kind of, well, I wouldn't say they're always rough, but they are more ruthless forces. They don't care about your feelings, so it's good to balance them with a little sugar. And the moon in Taurus does lean towards the sweet, so this should be available. Could be a strange month to get some sea legs. I wish you all well. And let's move on. Onward to the waning quarter moon. All right, fam. Waning quarter. We're into December 2023. It's the 4th of December. Oh, yeah, and the waning quarter moon is really about retrospection. When we look at the waning quarter, we're seeing the wind down from the high point in the cycle, approaching the next low point. And what we have is a chance to integrate, to incorporate, to retrospect and retroflect, take what worked and discard what didn't. And when we look at a late quarter moon chart, we can sort of see how will that energy feel? Looking back on this month, will there be a sense of empowerment, entitlement, challenge, adventure? What's the weather report for us looking back? And the moon is sitting in the degree of fixed star Zosma, and Zosma is a star that at its highest is about breaking cycles of trauma, really relating to some of the Chiron themes and context earlier in the cycle. And in the context of a moon so strongly marked by urges to independence, I would say this feels really appropriate. Because it isn't a major chart, I'm going to summarize a little quickly some of the important relationships between the inner planets and outer planets this month. But we have Moon trine to Jupiter and Uranus. We have Jupiter trine to Mercury. We have Saturn trine to Venus, and a Chiron trine to the Sun. We also have a close Pluto square Venus. And these strong trines to Venus and Mercury from Saturn and Jupiter really say to me there's an opportunity for us to gain this month, to look back and realize we've gained personal power in the form of inner understanding. Be highly likely to see that this will be an educational month for us. I see the moon in Leo as, especially on Zosma, as a self-knowledge, self-awareness, self-empowering kind of energy, that's where the cycle may emerge with the moon conjoined Saturn in Aquarius, and this is a very dispassionate, impersonal kind of feeling, stuff your feelings, deal with the situation kind of energy. But when we look back on it, we may have a sense of personal victory available to us. And I think that's nice. And we'll take a sneak peek, right? Because we're winding down. The energy of the last quarter moon is winding down to the energy of the next new moon. And as the sun is approaching Ophiuchus, I think it'll be exciting, always exciting to see Ophiuchus season. The 12th of December, 2023, sees an Ophiuchus new moon, sees Mercury stationed retro for this one. Could be an interesting month. Mercury only makes a wide square with Chiron, so and close aspects with Venus and Jupiter in a sort of Virgo Aries axis, this sort of axis of action, axis of informed action. So any of the choices and challenges that bleed over from Libra into Scorpio Fucus season can definitely be understood here in the context of a chance to continue that healing work, to take that and really go somewhere significant with it, to really understand it deeply and truly. Whatever else is going on, we do have big healing opportunities that look like they're going to be available to us. And that's all I want to say for now, because, we'll look at that next month. And until then, hey friends, you can like this video if you're still here. I think, please give it a thumbs up. Totally helps the channel do the YouTube things. I want to invite everybody to Radical Astrology. I'll put that up, a little link for you. Radical Astrology is a Facebook group where you can stay connected to the living skies, practitioners, resources. It's a very beautiful community for constellational astrologers, for people who are interested, you just want to connect. You can, meet an array of practitioners, or just kind of join the conversation if you're interested, if you're learning. All stripes invited. No particular flag we fly. Just as long as it's constellational, that's what we like. I also want to throw up on the screen a link to support my sweet Sarina. She and her diabetic complications, his neuropathy has got too painful. She has to quit working, and she's awaiting a disability decision, so she's cut off from earned income while they do something on a government time frame. Could take a year, and we just have to survive. So if you're feeling generous, please give. Thank you. Next, in the dialogue series, a series of dialogues that I've been doing with other practitioners and VIPs, very interesting people. I'm going to be talking to Fran Arnett about some of her amazing observations and discoveries, especially within the realm of heliocentric astrology, and transcending that. I'm gonna guess we're gonna go beyond heliocentric, but that's her area of specialty. So look for that. I'm very excited. And in the spirit of self-promotion, please visit my website, oneskyastrology.com. Check it out. I didn't have much to say, but there I say it. I do readings. I'm available to read natal charts. I do this in a 13-sign constellational breakdown, true to the sidereal skies, and I apply the logic of evolutionary astrology to that zodiac, and it's profound. It's pretty next level. So come see me. Yeah, I love it. And friends, I think we have arrived at the end of another lunar cycle video. Thank you, and bless you. And I will see you on the robot, on the Facebot, Radical Astrology wise, and I'll see you next month for this December new moon in a Fucus. Exciting stuff. Ciao, fam. Love you all.